From introducing the boat notch to the Android world, to the water drop notch, to a completely notchless design, Vivo actually led the smartphone innovation engine in 2018. Oh, and let's not also forget about that in-display fingerprint scanner and the pop-out selfie camera. It is no wonder then that Vivo actually won the award for the most innovative smartphone in the inaugural edition of Mr. Phone Awards last year. Bringing the best of all that technology to the mid-range segment is the Vivo V15 Pro. The phone that actually makes the in-display fingerprint scanner and the pop-out selfie camera more affordable to the masses. Hi, I'm Ershad from Mr. Phone, and let's get down to my full review of the newly launched Vivo V15 Pro. But before we move on to the full review of the phone, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever Mr. Phone puts out an awesome new tech video, which could be a review, a camera comparison, or whatever you guys like. The V15 Pro is made entirely of polycarbonate, but you can't make that out unless you actually hold the phone in your hand. It looks a lot like glass, because Vivo has gone out of the way to use a special coating on the plastic body. The V15 Pro is actually available in two colors. The one that you see in my hand is the topaz blue variant, which actually looks really good in my opinion. And if you don't care about my opinion, a lot of people I asked also quite like the design of the phone. The V15 Pro is a fairly chunky 8.1mm at the center, but from the rear the phone has a gentle slope that meets at the frame. This gives the phone an illusion of being slim in the hand. Anyway, I think this is a smart design tactic. You also get a new triple camera setup on the rear. This triple camera setup is actually placed inside a separate module that clips on from the top. And well, it looks like a clip. There's no other way to put it. It looks odd at first, but you do get used to it. That said, I do have a couple of concerns with this design. Firstly, it juts out a little too much from the side, so when you place it on a table, it definitely wobbles. Secondly, there were times when my index finger would inadvertently obstruct the lens or come in the frame while taking a shot. This is because the clip module extends quite a bit below from the rear. And the primary 48MP camera is the one that sits at the bottom. Therefore, your finger obstructing the view will happen often, so be careful when shooting. But yes, the marquee feature of the phone is definitely the pop-out selfie camera. You can change the opening sound for this pop-out camera, although even if you mute it, you will hear the sound of the motor in a really quiet room. You can also push the motor down with your finger, but it closes the camera app immediately. More importantly, it is a faster spring mechanism that actually enables face unlock on the phone now. So you can see this, it works really fast. I never got bored of watching the front camera pop out from its groove every single time I wanted it to recognize my face. In fact, it works pretty well in the absolute dark as well. The V15 Pro lights up the screen to illuminate the face in order to recognize it. Honestly, I didn't use the new 5th generation in-display fingerprint scanner very often during my review period. It is fast and pretty effective, but I'm a fan of well-implemented face unlock. I really hope Android brands find a way to make it more secure like the iPhone XS. On the top, you get a 3.5mm jack, hallelujah, but at the bottom, you get a micro USB port. Well, I take back that excitement. Flanking the dratted micro USB port is the mono speaker on the right and the dual SIM card tray for nano SIM cards on the left. The right edge has the power button and the volume rocker, which are adequately tactile, and on the left you get a dedicated button for the Google Assistant and yet another slot for the microSD card. All in all, as far as the design of the V15 Pro is concerned, I think it is a looker that is very futuristic in terms of a lot of features, but it does make a few compromises. The V15 Pro's big 6.39-inch Full HD Super AMOLED display stares at you. And you know what? You don't have to stare back at a notch. It is a truly liberating experience once you see it. Hashtag say no to the notch. This Super AMOLED panel looks crisp and bright. That said, it is a little too colorful in my opinion. The oversaturated colors accentuate the reds and it is definitely tuned to wow people. But it is not accurate. And the inbuilt settings didn't help me much either. But the blacks are deep and inky and the viewing angles are fine, not too bad. That said, there is definitely some color shift that you will notice while using the phone, which is typical for most phones with AMOLED panels. As for the haptic feedback, you do get vibrations at the bottom when you actually type, but this is not a very precise haptic feedback. But having said that, I actually didn't disable the haptic feedback because of the reason that it is a very soft feedback that you get from typing, so it wasn't really intrusive to my entire experience. The V15 Pro's multimedia experience is largely defined by this notchless display. It is a clean and uninterrupted experience that can hide the flaws of color accuracy on the display because it looks stunning to begin with. I was compelled to watch more videos on the V15 Pro just because of how it actually draws you into that experience. But yeah, the Vivo V15 Pro doesn't offer wideband L1 certification, which allows for streaming on Netflix and Prime in HD quality. This is a letdown if you consume a bulk of your video content through these services. And also because the Nokia 8.1 offers wideband L1 certification along with support for HDR10. That said, if you watch only YouTube videos, then the V15 Pro should work well for you. As for the audio, the mono speaker at the bottom doesn't get too loud, but it is fairly crisp. The audio performance, true to Vivo's legacy, is really good. This is one reason that the V15 Pro really outshines the competition in this price range. The same can be said for the performance of the wireless audio too. The Vivo V15 Pro, like many other Vivo phones that we've used in the past, uses FunTouch OS as a skin, and on the V15 Pro, it uses it on top of Android 9.0 Pie. There is really not much of a difference in the experience. It is the same as we experienced on the V11 Pro or the Vivo Nex. That said, let me just break down what I like and what I don't like about the whole experience of the software on the V15 Pro. Let's start off with the stuff I like. Firstly, a universal search like iOS is a great feature. I think all Android phones should have it like this. Secondly, I really like the message screen splitting option that shows a floating bubble of any message you receive through an app like WhatsApp. You can immediately split the screen by hitting the floating icon. The app clone option for multiple messaging apps is also a helpful feature for a lot of folks. And finally, the dedicated motorbike mode for motorcyclists can help riders ride safely. Now moving on to the stuff that I don't like about FunTouch OS. First, there are too many unwanted third-party apps that are pre-installed. For example, NewsPoint and UC Browser. Thankfully, they can be deleted. Secondly, custom icons for notifications are still beyond my understanding. It doesn't feel very familiar and feels like a disjointed experience overall. And finally, I still don't see the need for a dedicated Jovi feature. It is yet another disjointed experience that doesn't include the voice assistant which is available in the Chinese markets. Overall though, what FunTouch OS actually needs is maybe a little bit of developer love and a fresh new coat of paint, maybe. Thankfully, it is really well optimized for mid-range chipsets and it feels very nimble. It's almost as fast as stock Android, and that in itself doesn't break the experience of using the smartphone. Yes! Let's talk about that one thing that all of you have been waiting for, the V15 Pro's cameras. On the rear, you get a triple camera setup, one of which is a 48 megapixel primary Samsung ISOCELL GM1 sensor with an f/1.8 aperture lens. Then there is a secondary 8 megapixel wide angle camera with an f/2.0 aperture, and finally a 5 megapixel depth sensor. Moving to the front, you have a pop-out selfie camera which uses a 32 megapixel Samsung ISOCELL GD1 sensor with an f/2.0 aperture. So the two new Samsung ISOCELL sensors are actually half-inch sensors with a pixel size of 0.8 microns. Now Samsung uses its own variation of the pixel binning technology called tetracell technology on these sensors, and what this does is that it actually merges 4 pixels together to create better light sensitivity and a pixel size of 1.6 micron, which is larger than the actual pixel size of 0.8 microns. Now at this larger pixel size on the rear camera, you get an effective resolution of 12 megapixel, and on the front camera, you get an effective resolution of 8 megapixels. Before I talk about the picture quality, a little bit about the camera app first. It is a fairly well laid out app with all the modes at the bottom part that works as a carousel. There is a new dedicated night mode as well. Then of course there are the AR stickers for some fun images and videos. As for the AI features, you get an AI scene detection mode for the rear camera. And there is the AI beauty mode for the front camera. Moving on, the 32 megapixel front camera takes crisp 8 megapixel selfies in regular mode. The AI beauty mode has a ton of options that can make you look like a model, but I prefer natural looking selfies. In daylight and in low light, the selfies look great. And thanks to the new Samsung sensor, you also get HDR on the front, which ensures that you don't get a blown out background. I also tried a few selfies in the native 32 megapixel resolution, and it is definitely softer because of the smaller pixel size. I'd suggest you shoot in the 8 megapixel mode for more detailed selfies. As for the rear cameras, you get detailed images from the primary sensor when you're actually shooting in 12 megapixel resolution. Thanks to the f/1.8 aperture, you also get a decent depth by default. The colors are bright and colorful in daylight, and most people will find it attractive to look at. Vivo is really not going for accuracy here, but I think that is okay because the pictures look pleasing to the eye and very vivid. Evidently, the details are very soft when you shoot at full 48 megapixel res, but the 12MP shots look great. The V15 Pro has a great aperture mode that lets you change the f-stop on the fly, or after you've taken the picture. The bokeh looks very believable and the edge detection is great too. I'm surprised at the quality of the image, honestly. Looks like the 5 megapixel depth camera is really getting the job done. The 8 megapixel wide angle camera takes a really wide field of view with autofocusing capabilities as well. The pictures look great for a dedicated wide angle sensor, albeit with a bit of barrel distortion. I'm sure a lot of folks can use the wide angle camera creatively for a different perspective every time. In low light, Vivo doesn't offer much in terms of noise control without night mode on. With night mode, it is a different story altogether. It brings in a lot of light for sure, but it smoothens out the details. The final image looks soft on closer inspection. The V15 Pro's rear camera can also shoot 4K video at a variable frame rate of 24 to 30 FPS but with no stabilization. It keeps hunting for focus and the stereo sound recording has no noise cancellation at any recording quality. At 1080p 30 FPS, you definitely get a well stabilized footage that is slightly cropped though. You can also shoot 1080p footage using the front camera and the details are just stunning. It also shoots a wider image than most phones in this price range, making it a great option for vlogging. The sound recording is great too. The only thing missing is image stabilization, but that I won't worry too much about. What you thought about the picture quality, the sound quality, and the image stabilization as well, as I pan around a little bit and the light source changes and you can see what happens when the light is hitting me at a different angle. In fact, the camera seems pretty wide. We're shooting a video using the Vivo V15 Pro and it tops out at 4K 30 FPS. You can hear my voice for the sound recording and we're checking out for the stabilization and the image quality as well. We're shooting a video using the Vivo V15 Pro at 1080p 60 FPS to check for sound quality, the image stabilization and the video quality as well. We're shooting a video using the Vivo V15 Pro at 1080p variable frame rate 2430 FPS and you check for the sound quality, the image quality and the video stabilization as well. Overall, the V15 Pro's cameras are definitely going to be its biggest selling point because they are very good and probably just a couple of software updates away from being like incredible cameras in this price range. Another feather in Vivo V15 Pro's cap is the fact that it comes with Snapdragon 675, which is probably the first phone in the world, or maybe at least the first phone in India to come with this chipset. This Snapdragon 675 chipset is part of Qualcomm's incredibly dense mid-range portfolio, which has the Snapdragon 660, which has the 636, which has the 710 and 670, and now the 675. It's just a very dense portfolio. Anyway, the V15 Pro that we have has 6 gigs of RAM and 128 GB of storage with a separate memory card slot that sits on the right side. In daily use, the Snapdragon 675 flies, quite literally. I got buttery smooth performance and the V15 Pro has decent RAM performance too. It killed a graphically intensive game like Asphalt 9 after 30 minutes of keeping it in memory so as to make way for the smaller apps. I ran a regular suit of benchmarks too. The Antutu benchmark returned a score of around 1,75,000, which is higher than what I achieved with the Nokia 8.1, which has a Snapdragon 710 chip. In our Geekbench test, the phone returned scores of 2357 in the single core test and 6241 in the multi-core test. That is just excellent numbers and it shows in the daily performance too. The Snapdragon 675 uses an Adreno 612 graphics chip for gaming. That is slightly underpowered when compared to the Adreno 616 used by the Snapdragon 710. That said, the gaming performance was not too bad. I played PUBG and Asphalt 9, two of the most graphically intensive games on Android today, and they ran absolutely fine. PUBG ran on HD settings and high frame rate by default, so that's great. Also, after a proper 30-minute session, the battery temperature rose from 27.5 to 34.9 and it stayed stable for around 15 minutes after that. That is pretty decent heat management in my opinion. I also ran the Android bench test to check storage performance and the V15 Pro's eMMC 5.1 storage had one of the highest scores. I got a read score of 312.34 MBs per second and a write score of 196.78 MBs per second. Overall, after using the Snapdragon 675 chipset on the V15 Pro, I'm convinced that this mid-range chip needs to be on a lot more smartphones. I use the V15 Pro with an Airtel and Jio SIM for the duration of my review in like 3 different cities. Two of them were in Tamil Nadu, which is Coimbatore and Salem, and in Gurgaon. Unfortunately, for some odd reason, on both Airtel and Jio, I couldn't get great data speeds in Tamil Nadu, but I got good data speeds in Gurgaon. The call quality, despite the slim speaker slit, was excellent with no call drops even. All in all, I'm satisfied with the call and the radio performance. Powering all the internal components on the V15 Pro is a 3700 mAh battery. And this battery comes with Vivo's dual engine quick charging technology. I tested the charging speeds on a couple of occasions and I got a charging time of 1 hour 40 minutes from both the test runs. This is only slightly slower than dash charge, but it's still pretty fast. As for the battery performance, it is still a pity that Vivo doesn't give out details like the screen on time in FunTouch OS. This makes it difficult to assess the battery performance, but here's what I noticed. I got 12 hours of continuous extremely heavy usage on a single charge on 2 different runs. On both the occasions, I watched a total of around 1 hour of video, constant social media of at least 2 hours in total, an hour of music listening, capturing close to 100 pictures, 30 minutes of PUBG and 30 minutes of Asphalt 9, and around 20 minutes of calls in total. I mean, of course, this varies a little bit, but I got 12 hours of usage. This is pretty decent battery life, and I'm certain that you can easily eke out a day's worth of moderate usage from a single charge. Now we come to the end of the review where I tell you if you should buy the V15 Pro or not. With the V15 Pro, Vivo has established itself as the only smartphone brand that is going all out for full screen experiences without that blip that is a notch. That is some persistence and commitment to actually delivering uninterrupted smartphone experiences. Only if the company had pushed the limits of that display, that would have made it even a sweeter deal. For example, the fact that it doesn't come with wideband L1 certification is actually a bit of a downer, primarily because in the rupees 20,000 price range, above the rupees 20,000 price range, I think that all phones should come with the certification because that enables you to watch HD content on streaming sites like Netflix and Hotstar. But this is probably an issue only for uber geeks like us who care about HD streaming quality on Netflix and Hotstar. A lot of the folks who buy the phone offline would probably not even care about this certification. And that's where Vivo knows where to cut time and costs. Having said that, the full screen experience on the V15 Pro is a sight to behold, especially when you're playing games or watching videos on YouTube, which I think a large chunk of the population does anyway. And for them, the V15 Pro with its futuristic tech and fairly capable specs is almost a no-brainer. So with that, let's actually figure out how the V15 Pro stacks against its immediate competition. To start off, let's compare the V15 Pro to the Poco F1. This is the one phone that everyone goes back to when looking at anything around and above the rupees 20,000 price range. It is a great phone, no doubt, but like the V15 Pro, it has a few shortcomings too. The lack of wideband L1 certification for one. Moreover, the Poco F1 is not available in the offline market, so if you're going to buy a phone from the market anyway, the V15 Pro is going to be a great option. The Zenfone 5Z is yet another great phone in this price range with great specs. I quite liked the 5Z when it launched, but the Poco stole its thunder later. Now, the Poco almost becomes the de facto recommendation over the 5Z, unfortunately. And the Zenfone 5Z is again an online-only phone, so if you want to buy it offline, then you're looking at the V15 Pro as a better option. The Nokia 8.1 is one of my favorite phones that launched late last year. It has a great metal and glass body, a good set of cameras, and an HDR10 enabled display with wideband L1 certification. But the inbuilt DAC is not great for audio, and that's where the V15 Pro has an edge. Also, the futuristic no-notch look will attract a lot of folks. Stock Android on the Nokia 8.1 is definitely going to be another factor for purists, which is a niche, by the way. However, a lot of common audience prefers more features in the operating system, and that's where the V15 Pro could have an edge. To sum it up, the V15 Pro is a phone that tries to be different, and to a certain extent, it actually succeeds in all of the innovation that it tries to do. Only if Vivo would rethink FunTouch OS from ground up. So that's it from me. I'm Ershad from Mr. Phone. I hope you guys liked our video. Until the next one, goodbye.